It was the great year of 2014, the year that Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric released. Oh, and also the year that FNAF came out, I guess. But I think something that's even more important than the fact that the game released is the fact that Freddy Fazbear was created. And I am 100% aware of how stupid of a sentence that is. But, you know what? If you walk into your local GameStop, I will bet money that the second most prominent character next to Super Mario is going to be Freddy Fazbear. He is an actual merchandising titan. But how did we get here? How did Freddy Fazbear become a near inescapable face in the realm of the internet? And more importantly, will he ever go away at this point? The answer may shock you.
Freddy Fazbear.
Guys, you're not gonna believe this, but I think I found a ghost. Just kidding, I found nothing. But if you know anything about me, you'd know that I like Freddy Fazbear quite a bit. Some would say to an alarming degree. But I think that makes me a little overqualified to talk about this. And with how FNAF literally had an all-time peak in popularity back in early 2022 with Security Breach, and now, only a little over a year later, it's peaking in popularity again with the movie, brand recognition is at an all-time high, production values at an all-time high, the memes are everywhere in and outside of the community. We have actually never been so back. And I want to go over how Freddy Fazbear is slowly but surely taking over the world. Oh, and I'm being serious. Among the ranks of internet horror mascots, few have been able to genuinely compete with Freddy. Some have gotten close, but none have managed to achieve the brand power and longevity that FNAF has had. And I think the most important reason for that is that Freddy Fazbear as a character has every single piece set perfectly in place to make him work perfectly as a popular character. Look at two of the most popular media franchises of all time, Pokemon and Marvel. What do they have in common? Lots and lots of characters and versions of said characters. Now that's not to say having a bunch of characters is always a positive for a franchise, but it does open the door to a very easy way to innovate on things. And I think Freddy is a perfect template for a franchise like this. FNAF has a very distinct character design philosophy. The typical FNAF design will contain a head and 14 different body segments, all with visible joints revealing the endoskeleton underneath. And they can morph and twist this template however they want to create however many different characters they want. And this philosophy both has a ton of freedom to create unique designs, which makes it so the vast majority of FNAF animatronics can never be mistaken as being from another franchise, which isn't really the case for a lot of other IPs of a similar nature to FNAF. So now let's get into Freddy himself finally.
Are these the world's most crispy threat? Let's find out.
Freddy Fazbear is a perfect mascot design, but not exactly for the reasons you'd expect. At least in terms of a lot of other popular mascots, because he's not necessarily a colorful character, with his color palette basically entirely consisting of just brown and some blue on his eyes. But most of the reason why it works so well is the way that he's shaped. Big snout, defined jaw, round body, very puffy cheeks, large ears, and the instantly recognizable segmented joints that became iconic with FNAF. His large eyebrows give him plenty of room for expression, and his hat and bow tie tell you perfectly that he's the main one. He's about as good as it gets. Not too simple, not too complicated, perfect balance between all the right factors, with a very recognizable silhouette. And even if Freddy isn't the most important character to the story of FNAF, he is undoubtedly the best pick for the face of the series. He is every single recognizable aspect of FNAF animatronics bundled together in a nice little package, and it's Freddy Fazbear. Well, also the fact that he's literally a giant teddy bear. And he also tends to lend himself to the most distinct variants of any other character in the series. Hey guys, so my plushie campaign has recently ended, and so many people have been receiving theirs lately. Genuinely thank everybody who got one, because it blew the campaign out of the water, and to everybody who didn't get one, I have good news, there's a restock! Yeah, so the plushie basically oversold, which I was not expecting in the slightest, thank you guys so much, but because of that, we've decided to restock the plush temporarily. There's about 80 plushies left, so if you'd like to go order one now, go ahead while you still can, because they are almost gone forever. And I've also got a second plushie coming up sometime later this year, so stay tuned for that as well. But yeah, the turtle plush is back in stock right now, link in the pinned comment and description. And I just want to thank you guys again, it is genuinely so special to have so many people who want to, like, buy a plushie of a character you made, like, that's crazy. So genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much. Alright, let's get back into the video.
How is this my neighbor? How is this guy my neighbor? He's a complete stranger, again is what I wager.
On a surface level, it would seem that Freddy and Toy Freddy would give off the same vibe, but when you put them side by side with each other, they really don't. They portray completely different personalities and shape languages. They're both equally iconic and equally Freddy, but they give off completely different vibes that make them both able to stand on their own and both be represented as mascots of the series, which you see very prominently in merchandise. Heck, the standard Freddy Fazbear's pizza logo literally features Toy Freddy instead of Classic Freddy, but nobody bats an eye because he works just as well as Classic Freddy would've. Withered Freddy is just a creepier vibe to what Classic Freddy had going on. Nightmare Freddy is, well, he's not really in the game very much. But he's still instantly recognizable as Freddy, but also very, very distinct in the sense that he's kind of like the metal version of Freddy. Yep, I don't like the same Freddy my little brother likes. I like the cool Freddy, the cool scary Freddy. I'm gonna be him for Halloween. But I think the first Freddy that truly stood out to like a crazy degree was Funtime Freddy. He completely ditches the brown color scheme for whites, purples, and pinks. He's got a Bonnie puppet attached to him, he's got a crazy voice. But for a while there, he was one of the most popular FNAF characters, and it was because of his strong personality. Which I think was pretty needed after Freddy got kind of overshadowed by other characters in the roster. Even if Funtime Freddy isn't the most important, he definitely leaves the most of an impact out of the Sister Location roster. But the rest of this stuff going forward is stuff that I want to get into later in the video. So now let's get into the actual history of Freddy Fazbear and how he took over the world. So, the first Five Nights at Freddy's game was a phenomenon. It was the trendy game at the time. Everything about it was very interesting, captivating, and it was very spooky and unique. Freddy Fazbear and his band were loved and hated by parents and kids alike across the globe. And if FNAF was made by anybody else, it would have probably just had the first game be milked as long as possible. Then it would have just died off and been lost in the shambles of old internet trends. But FNAF was made by Scott Cawthon, and if you know anything about Scott Cawthon, he's insane. So within a few months, there was a full sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's released, and this solidified FNAF as having a And Freddy became the face of me and many other people's minds. Within just a few months, just about every kid out there knew who Freddy Fazbear was and recognized his face. Well, kids with internet access at least. The game was extremely popular with Let's Play YouTubers, and so many big channels were parodying it. Like frickin' Mario Logan. Please don't hurt me! Don't cut my arms off! It would take a while for FNAF to actually breach into the real world in terms of merchandise and such. But that did not stop kids on the school playground. So yeah, if you were in elementary school during the early days of FNAF, this would be probably something that you would remember. We used to play this awesome game on the playground at school, where one kid would hide in this little, like, tower thing on the playground, and that would be, like, the security office, and then, a bunch of other kids would be, like, the animatronics, and then we'd, like, just, like, verbally harass them from outside of the tower, I guess. And, a funny story about that, I saw a kid break his leg, while playing that game. Okay, now I know that sounds bad, but he wasn't involved in the game when he broke his leg. He just, like, fell off of the little, like, fire pole, and then he, like, fell and broke his leg, and I think I was, like, Foxy. I was running down the hallway. It was awesome. I also remember when we went to Chuck E. Cheese, we would think that there was like Freddy was in the back room and that he was gonna come out eventually. And like when we were in the tubes of the play place, the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic would kind of look in our direction, and when he did that, we'd assume that it was Freddy trying to contact us, like the ghost. Not really sure why my mind defaulted to the ghost of Freddy Fazbear possessing Chuck E. Cheese to contact us, but you know. So now I've told you guys some of my personal memories, let's go to some of my friends' personal memories. These were not actually life-ruining experiences, and I am only saying that for comedic effect.
I remember the first time I had ever experienced anything FNAF at Fred Nights. It was in gym class. We were all lined up, and then I heard this random kid who said to another kid, he was like, "You ever heard of this game? It's called Five Nights at Freddy's." And then I looked it up when I got home, and my life was changed forever. But a more funny memory I have is I remember I was with my friend who had her brothers with her, and she had like her mom's iPhone, which was like an iPhone 6 at the time. It had a home button. It was revolutionary technology. Anyway, they let me play FNAF 1 on it, and I did the most noble thing I could possibly do. I closed both the doors, and then that was it, and then I waited and did nothing until the power ran out. And then exactly when the power ran out, I ran across the room and I put my eyes into my hands, and then wait until I heard the jump scare noise from like across the room faintly end, and then I came back, and that was the first time I had ever played Five Nights at Freddy's from Markiplier.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Bender Pizzeria, Pepino, Ohio Riz Garden of Ban. I mean, this franchise is like the most important thing in my entire life. I am not over exaggerating when I say that this stupid bear has paid my taxes on several occasions. I used to be genuinely horrified of FNAF, but like not actually. See, I wasn't really scared of FNAF because not only did I not know anything about it, but I just didn't really find it that too spooky. But I had an older brother. Every single thing, every opinion that he had was my opinion. He made it his goal to ban FNAF from the household. It was like a restricted topic, okay? And not only could we not talk about it, not speak about it, but because of that, I had to convince myself that it was like the scariest thing ever. And I never actually played any of the games or like saw any gameplay, but I still considered myself a fan, so I would just draw stuff and like pretend I knew what was going on in the story when I had no idea. I think at one point, like, what my brain had thought the plot of FNAF was, so you're staying the night at Freddy's house, right? And Freddy is a bear. And you go around and you, like, the 5 nights in question, each night you kill one of the animatronics. And the reason why I believed this is because I saw thumbnails of Gmod 5 Nights at Freddy, and I'd see, like, Chica dead, bleeding on the floor, and I'd be like, oh my god, this is so scary. So for the longest time, that's what I thought the game was. So Security Breach was like a fever dream for me because you actually did beat up the animatronics in that, and I think they answered my prayers or whatever. I don't know, but it's 2014, 2015, whatever. FNAF is like the biggest thing on YouTube. And this is when we still had YouTube Rewind, okay, which I miss dearly. And I remember this very vividly. I was at like a babysitter's house, and we were watching the YouTube Rewind, and Markiplier came on, and they started Five Nights at Freddying, and I wasn't, like, really scared of it, but I felt like I had to be. It was, like, my job, you know? So I screamed incredibly loud and just ran over to the other room, and it's absolutely absurd because I can't remember this. I only remember seeing Markiplier and screaming, so I guess some things never change, because I still scream every time I see that guy. Good f***ing lord, Jesus Christ, what a bear.
FNAF has always obviously been a very prominent part in my life growing up, but I was a very bizarre FNAF fan to say the least. I remember that I used to do this thing in school where I'd lip sync FNAF songs to myself at my desk, and like everyone would just look at me like I was an absolute insane person. But I had this very specific memory of me doing it with the original FNAF 1 Living Tombstone song. But for some reason, at the very end of the song, when it plays a little jump scare sound, I would imagine that a little guy that was portrayed by my fingers was like walking up a mountain, and then he'd look up at me, and then I would pretend that I was Freddy Fazbear, and I'd jump scare him from the sky, and I'd start eating my fingers.
Now those were some traumatic Freddy Fazbear memories if I've ever heard any. Huge thanks to all my awesome friends for doing segments here. But yeah, Freddy Fazbear caused some stuff to happen. It was literally the Fazbear mind virus.
O cholera, czy to Freddy Fazbear?
Oh wait, hold on. I need to finish my new character stills, hold on. Alright, there we go. So you may be asking, what are you getting at here? Well, guess what? We are just getting into things, and trust me, now it's about to get crazy. So I know Sanchi made some FNAF plushies, but they don't really count as the true distributor, because their plushies weren't the easiest to get a hold of, and a lot of the younger fans didn't even know they existed at the time, like me. So yeah, Sanchi in 2015 was nice, but most people couldn't really get them. But once 2016 came around, that's when stuff got serious. Multiple companies obtained the license for Five Nights at Freddy's in this year. Funko, BioWorld, McFarlane Toys. And this began a global spread of Freddy Fazbear. Every kind of merch you could possibly imagine, they were making it. Figures, plushies, pops, mugs, pens, steal his pizza if you dare but beware the jump scare. You couldn't even escape him if you went to school, cause guess what you'd see if you went to your Scholastic book fair? Freddy! Shopping for Halloween costumes? Freddy! He was in the Guinness Book of World Records for most sequels released in a year, which will soon be taken over by Jumbo Josh, so kind of a shame. And while this was good for the brand, it did start a thing where the series was getting a little oversaturated in the public view. The huge fans of the series were obviously very happy with what was going on, where everybody who didn't care about the series was just kind of like, oh, Freddy Fazbear everywhere, okay. And this was around the time of Sister Location's release, which was the most different game in the series at the time, which got a lot of non-FNAF fans into the series more. And while I already touched on this earlier, this game did bring Funtime Freddy into existence, which, if you know anything about Funtime Freddy, now obviously he did have a pretty distinct personality from the rest of the gang in FNAF 1, but Sister Location was the first game where he truly felt like a standout character. Which is interesting, because this is the 5th game in the series. And Freddy wasn't even the main face of Sister Location, it was Baby. But you know, I feel like we should blame that on Baby having literally one render in the entire game. And of course, the biggest reason towards Funtime Freddy's popularity is Kellen Goff. He is easily the most iconic voice actor in the series, and any character he voices is immediately made like 11 times more popular because he voices them. It's just because of how much personality he inserts into them. And Sister Location had its own merch push, which included a bunch of unique branding related to the game specifically, which is a thing that would be reoccurring for every other FNAF game afterwards. Which I guess shows a lot of confidence that the brand has, that people will recognize it no matter what, but at the same time, I think it would be nice if everything was a little more uniform, because every FNAF merch wave from Funko having a completely different style every single time gets a little jarring. Like, Freddy isn't on the box anymore. Just regular old Freddy? Nope, not there anymore, and I think that's a big shame. Well, to be specific, Withered Freddy on the box, which doesn't really make sense because he's never had a figure before. And even then, it is subjective, that's just how I feel about it. I get if you like... And I'd like if they updated it, because, you know, if they put, like, Classic Freddy on there, it'd make more sense, so maybe, like, update it to have that instead. But the fact that FNAF has no consistent brand going from 2017 onward is very strange. It just kind of varies completely based on which game in the series it's about. But luckily, this was only really a Funko issue. Other companies seem to be a lot more consistent in terms of branding. But yeah, now let's look at what Pizza Sim and Onward did, which was self-awareness.
Oh no, there's a bunch of bees gonna get me from the trees. Neighbor must have sent them here. No.
So Pizzeria Simulator had things like Rockstar Freddy, who was good for merchandise, but he also didn't really do anything in the game. The most prominent Freddy in this game was actually Molten Freddy, who was basically just fan service because Scott made Funtime Freddy the leader of Ennard in this game, which I think is pretty obvious why he would pick Funtime Freddy. Don't think this is me complaining, because I really like Molten Freddy. I think he looks really cool. I like it. I like that he's Funtime Freddy's the one who took over, because that's really funny. And Funtime Freddy's popularity prior to FNAF 6 goes beyond just Molten Freddy, because there's literally a baby Funtime Freddy named Helpy. That is the most blatant thing ever. Scott just knew how much Funtime Freddy mattered to the community, which is the entire reason why 2 whole characters in this game exist. Well, I guess you could argue if Funtime Freddy wasn't as popular, he probably would have just been entered again. But still, you get my point. Lots of fan service in FNAF 6. But the main topic I want to talk about for FNAF 6 is how self-aware it is about how large the FNAF brand has gotten and kind of making fun of it, while simultaneously poking fun at stupid megacorporations. Properly introducing Fazbear Entertainment as a player in the FNAF series and their mascot as Freddy Fazbear gives Freddy a much larger presence in the overall picture. Just to have the soulless business voice in the game be portrayed by an image of Freddy staring at you pointing works really well, and I think having Fazbear Entertainment be a bigger player in the series from FNAF 6 and onward was a very good move on Scott's part. And this was carried on heavily in the next 2 games, would be FNAF VR and FNAF AR. Now, I know FNAF AR isn't the best game. It's not good. But it does have an extremely good and well-executed portrayal of Fazbear Entertainment.
It's guaranteed with our exclusive animatronics, you'll always have someone watching your back. They'll provide you with hours of fun entertainment and companionship. You can't hide from a future of fun. Our special delivery will make you jump with excitement. Subscribe today. Don't miss this opportunity. And remember, we're always watching out for you.
Congratulations! You've been selected for our newest service. You'll never know who's coming to visit. Press yes now to experience the best we have to offer for the next 24 hours. We're thrilled that you chose our service. You may now look forward to of excitement. Freddy Fazbear is on his way.
And I already did a whole video on why Fazbear Entertainment sucks, so if you want to hear me talk about them more, go ahead and watch that. But on to FNAF VR, because I don't really have much else to say about FNAF AR. I just wanted to show that clip. Oh my gosh, he's 3-dimensional! So yeah, somehow for this franchise created in 2014 that's gotten this huge at this point, it's only just now breaching into 3D. And how will this impact Freddy Fazbear? It gave him this really, really ugly color palette. Like, I get this stuff is subjective, but look at him, he's so desaturated. This looks like a husk of his former self, and I'm upset. And they also removed his paw beans. How could they do something like that? The overall model is fine, it's just the color palette is very, very off compared to how Freddy should look. Not to mention how Freddy himself just doesn't have a very significant screen presence in this game. Like, yeah, he's on the Faz tokens, he's in the intro. He's got a repair minigame, he's in the FNAF 1 mode. It's not like he's not represented. It's just that he never really gets any time in the spotlight for any moment. Outside of his repair minigame, obviously, but those are so quick and easy to do. I feel like Freddy himself deserved a little better in this game. Because despite being the face of everything and being such a famous character just in the grand scheme of things, he really never gets a lot of screen presence by himself. And that goes for all the FNAF 1 gang, but it's especially weird for Freddy because he's like on the title screen. But hey, Funtime Freddy's got a new level with reused voice lines, so kinda missed the mark with that one. Nightmare Fredbear is there. Does he count? Nah, he's more like Freddy's grandpa in my opinion. But yeah, this was a pretty good time for FNAF. If Help Wanted was a pretty good release, although a lot of people couldn't play it until much later, and even when they could play it, flat mode's kinda bad. So anyway, on to the literal all-time peak in FNAF's popularity, FNAF Security Breach. Despite the game's mixed reception, FNAF Security Breach was still a massive success, and there's a thing in the game that contributed heavily to that. The Toy Freddy poster above this toilet. Glam Rock Freddy. Arguably one of the most popular FNAF characters ever at this point. Which comes from the fact that they found a very creative way to turn Freddy into a key part of the story and gameplay. He's a good guy in this game. No other point in the series has the player really been able to grow a bond with a Freddy character. With his stupidly marketable design and his lovable personality, portrayed by Kellen Goff again, there's a trend here. People quickly realized that Glamrock Freddy wasn't just another variation of Freddy. He was a secondary mascot for the series that could stand toe-to-toe with the original. We see this very prominently with how merchandise is handled nowadays with the two sides. PAX East this year when they had the real-life Glamrock Freddy and Classic Freddy mascot suits. I feel like what they have going on here with the FNAF brand is very comparable to what they have with Sega and the Sonic brand, with how they split merchandising into Classic and Modern, just like how FNAF merchandise splits it into Classic and Security Breach. Glamrock Freddy is the refreshment that the series needed. And now with the movie coming out, seemingly trying to make the classic era come back in a way, and with Help Wanted 2's heavier focus on the post-FNAF 4 stuff, is that the classic and modern iterations of Freddy will be able to coexist peacefully. And oh my goodness, when the movie releases next month, it is going to be... The fandom is actually going to explode, like genuinely. And I'm terrified to see how that turns out, but I'm also very excited, because I think that now that Freddy has become such a big icon in the real world, and with FNAF being bigger than ever having a feature film coming out next month, I think it's pretty safe to say that Freddy Fazbear is not going anywhere anytime soon, and he'll probably outlive you. And me. So yeah, that was a lot different than my usual character analysis videos, because I wanted to go more over how Freddy has impacted outside of the games, rather than how he's impacted the games themselves. Because unlike the other characters in the core cast, I think Freddy has kind of transcended the franchise in a way. He is one of the most iconic horror characters out there in the modern day, and that's a really cool thing. So yeah, see you guys next time. Plushie, there's only 80 left, so make sure you get one while you still can. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be sometime, I'm sure.